Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to another BRAP. Can't believe it's Friday already. Sorry I'm late, by the way. I wasn't planning on doing a BRAP rant today, and then I remembered that the Black Myth Wukong reviews were going to come out today, and so we're going to discuss that here in just a little bit, and do kind of a review roundup. There's about 54 reviews per Metacritic. We'll go over those in a second. We're also going to cover a topic that we discussed briefly on Wednesday night, and that is presumably another major first-party Xbox exclusive is going to be multi-plat, is going to a competitor, in this case, the PlayStation. So we'll talk about that in a second. Just kind of want to talk about, look, we said this after the February business update that this was the direction that Microsoft was going. A lot of people were saying, doubling down on what Phil said. Oh, he only said these 4 games, but he also said that this is going to be a learning experience for them. And people are like, oh, well, he said that he said something to the effect that don't get used to this, and so. And Tom Warren asked him straight up in the interview afterwards, hey, Phil, is Starfield going to be on PlayStation? And Phil neither confirmed nor denied it, which if you read between the tea leaves there, it's the implication is that potentially all things are on the table. We're not committing just yet, but all things are potentially on the table. And now we're getting news. Shinobi had tweeted this out. Good friend of the show, by the way. Shinobi, who's often gotten things right in terms of leaks or predictions, if you will, and so he's saying that we could see I can't even talk. Forza Horizon 5 towards the latter part of next month of September. So going to be interesting to see how that plays out. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But big shout out to everyone again, the live chat. Thank you so much for joining us. Big shout out to Ice Queen Gaming, who's joining us live, or she's actually not joining us live. She's listening to us live. In Europe. So thank you so much, Ice Queen. Really appreciate the support as always. Do me a favor, everyone. I'm going to drop a link here in the live chat. Let everyone know we're live. Share the link. I'm going to actually tweet the link out to let everyone know I'm live as well. Let's see here. All right. Tweet out the link. Oh my gosh. Hold on, sorry, hold on a sec here. All right, anyhow, I'm sorry. I'm reading DMs here. This is too funny. All right, Wukong, Black Myth Wukong, Metacritic right now. So some people are out there. I actually had, I think, 2 people in the tweet that I put out about Black Myth Wukong that people were worried about the PlayStation 5 version because there are no reviews of the PlayStation 5. I was listening to Dreamcast Guy's video earlier. He mentioned that there had not been any PS5 review codes or review copies that had gone out. I don't know how entirely accurate that is. I'm not saying he's lying. I just don't have any additional insight just to say either way. Maybe that's the case, but nevertheless, and that maybe it does appear to be the case when you look at Metacritic because they aren't any other. 54 reviews have been based on PC, so the reviews are starting to come in. Now, Wukong is a game that people have been pretty excited about. Give me a sec here. Need to pull up my show notes. Forgot to do that. So Black Myth Wukong, when we first saw it, it reminded had some Souls-like elements to it, with a focus on heavy dodge, combat, exploration. So we saw some of those things in some of the vignettes that they showed and some of the big boss battles, and you know it looks like a really good game. I mean, it's a great looking game. I mean, the last trailer they showed left me like thinking like I want to play this game, and so that game's coming out in 3 days, August 19th. It's released on Monday. So I'm Look, I anything that resembles Souls or has some kind of like Souls-like elements to it, I'm going to be interested in and usually do pick up if I have time to play those games or that particular game. But I feel like there's a lot of hype behind Black Myth Wukong. There's a lot of, because it's new. I think because it has those combines those elements of Souls-like mechanics with that emphasis on dodge-heavy combat exploration. And it takes place in it's inspired. Actually, I didn't know this. Black Myth is actually inspired by a classic Chinese novel, Journey to the West, and you play as the Destined One. That's the protagonist, who's a monkey warrior on a quest to collect 6 relics of Sun Wukong, the legendary Monkey King. So, I think with some of the mysticism and the combat that we saw and the mythical creatures or bosses that you fight and just how good the game has looked, it seems like a lot of people were excited by this. Again, this is a completely new title, and it's only releasing on the PlayStation 5 and PC. The developer is still working on the Xbox version of the game, so we don't have a release date just yet. When those are going to when the Xbox Series X and S versions will come out, but we'll see. I mean, James Thomas says no PS5 review codes, possible issues. Maybe they should have been delayed. I mean, that is kind of the sentiment that's going around. I could certainly see understand those optics, understand why people are saying that. But I would say this, look, if you're on the fence, don't buy it, just wait. I mean, there's no pressure here. This is the thing that kind of, look, I don't have issues with people voicing some concern. Hey, you know what? Yeah, maybe I'm maybe I'm on the fence now because there's no PS5 reviews. But I've seen people like saying, oh, this is exactly like Cyberpunk. Maybe not, but I would never draw that conclusion. I would never say it's like Cyberpunk. I might say something to the effect like, oh, it kind of reminds me of the Cyberpunk situation. I'll be interested to see how this thing kind of plays out. But I often think people just jump to conclusions. They take out the jump to conclusions, Matt, and they immediately like, it's so weird this happens in gaming. There just tends to be a lot of negativity around new games, new game releases. It's always this game looks like a L, or this game sucks, and this game's in trouble. And I'm not saying that there aren't situations where we have an abundant amount of information where we can kind of draw those conclusions, say, yeah, this game is probably in trouble. But I think at the end of the day, we have to at the end of the day judge the game by its final. We can't really judge a game until it's released, and I think we rush a little bit to draw conclusions on things with incomplete information is my point. And again, I'm not saying that's always the case. Sometimes we do have the complete information and we can draw those conclusions because of the information that we have that's been collaborated. But the one thing that I'll say is, if you're on the fence with the PlayStation 5 version and you're like, there's no reviews here, and I'm concerned as a consumer, just wait. Don't buy it at launch. Just wait. I know there's a thing called FOMO, but just wait. Be a consumer and wait. James Stubbs says, can't the same thing be said about Xbox rumors and draw conclusions? What Xbox rumors are you referring to, James? Yeah, let me know what rumors you're referring to, James. You got to be a little more specific. Anytime a rumor comes out, it's treated. But I mean, but you got to be a little more specific. Like what rumor? Like, are you saying like? like more games coming to, because I think there's a little bit of nuance here, James. Like even with judging games, like I think if there's information out there that's collaborated, if we're hearing there's development issues with the game, if we're hearing from people who play the game that a game just doesn't play well, we could start formulating those conclusions. If a developer has a history of releasing games with a lot of bugs and they're and they have a new game in pipeline and we're hearing those same things, I think it's probably safe to draw that conclusion. Yeah, this probably is given this developer's history, and giving this new game that they're working on, and we're hearing that this game in development is having some of the other challenges that the previous games that they've worked on have had. Yeah, I mean, I think we could kind of connect to that, assume that's the case, or draw those conclusions. But I'm not sure like what specific rumors you're mentioning. Like, I mean, yeah, like people saying that the Xbox in fact is going to, or Microsoft in fact is going to release the handheld, maybe, but I wouldn't say that's 100% thing. But I will say, like, at least with Xbox, I mean, you can kind of connect the dots with them when you look at their financial statements, you look at what what leadership has said and the things they've done, their past behaviors, what their strategies is. I mean, I think you're able to kind of connect the dots and get an idea of where they're pivoting, and maybe some of those things that aren't confirmed, like we're going to talk about for Forza Horizon 5 being one of those games that could be coming to PlayStation 5. I understand that hasn't been confirmed, but given Microsoft's behavior with releasing games, their first party games on PlayStation now, it's not beyond a reason to assume that this actually may be happening. But I'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, I would just say, look, if you're concerned about PlayStation 5, the Black Myth Wukong game on PlayStation 5, just wait. Just wait. There's no rush to buy it. You don't have to go out and get it today. Stop the FOMO. FOMO could be your worst enemy. All right, see, I'm just trying to. All right, so let's see here. I'm gonna go. Yeah, Sam's saying I'm waiting on that physical release. Yeah, I'm gonna wait. I'm reading some of the PC reviews here, and I'm gonna wait till after this week and see where this game kind of settles down. But let me do a quick roundup of some of the reviews here. I don't know who Gamer Sky is, so I'm not going to read that. Let's see here. Trying to go to some of the more reputable sites. All right, PC Gamer. PC Gamer gave the game Black Myth Wukong an 87. They say Black Myth Wukong blossoms with an eccentric cast of characters and expressive combat, all wrapped up in the rich world of its source material. So they gave that an 87. WCCF Tech gave Black Myth Wukong an 85. I think this game eventually is probably going to settle in around 80, which again is not bad if you're a fan of the action adventure RPG genres. If you like those, if you like games that incorporate, elements of Souls-like mechanics that focus on a dodge-heavy combat and exploration, if you like stunning visuals, if you like formidable bosses, this may be a game that you like. Even if it's an 8, even if it levels out an 80, even if it's a 78 or 79 Metacritic. Again, we've talked about this. I talked about this on this show many times about on how reviews work and scores. And so if you're a fan of a specific genre, a 7 or an 8 is probably going to be a game you're going to enjoy because you are a fan of that genre which the game falls in. But WCCF Tech says Black Myth Wukong stands out as one of the strongest debut games released in recent times. While not groundbreaking in any way, it massively blends elements from several popular franchises to deliver an engaging action RPG experience that ranks just below the very best in the genre. Although stuttering issues, here we go, stuttering issues. Although stuttering issues and minor gameplay flaws hold it back slightly, they shouldn't deter any action RPG or action game fans from picking it up. Journey to the West has rarely been this enjoyable. This is going to be interesting, the stuttering things. I wonder if that is going to be an issue on the PlayStation 5 side of things. What's up, Stardust? Okay, we see True Shadow says, BRAP, I think the person was suggesting that Xbox rumors are being taken at face value while we are being more careful with this story. Only thing is Xbox rumors are being cited by multiple outlets. I mean, that's actually a fair point, Street. I mean, we're hearing this from insiders, people who have, and I know Shinobi pretty well. He's been on the show, good friend of the show. Shinobi doesn't really say things unless he's heard from a reliable source. Again, with the caveat again that nothing's been officially confirmed, but it will not. It wouldn't surprise me. But it's going to be interesting that stuttering is something that happens on PlayStation. Maybe not. Just something to kind of keep an eye out. All right, Digital Trends gave the game an 80. They said Black Myth Wukong is only a Souls-like in the way Stellar Blade is. And that's to its credit. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Comparing it to they're saying that it's not really a Souls-like. It's more along the lines of Stellar Blade. It lightly borrows elements from the subgenre, but carves out a niche for themselves by focusing on its key differences, despite some performance issues and frustrating difficulty spikes. Oh, here we go. We talked about, okay, so now we're hearing stuttering and performance issues, and this is on PC. So again, it begs the question: are we going to start seeing these things on PlayStation 5? I know this is a game that Sony has that Sony's been talking a bit about as it's only releasing on the PlayStation 5. But it's going to be again. I can certainly understand the optics. People saying, "Wait a minute, with no PS5 release review codes going out, maybe there's something there," and maybe there isn't. Maybe there isn't, but maybe there is. We don't know. Just again, it's a developing story, something to keep an eye on, and see how this thing kind of plays out a bit. But again, we're hearing the stuttering issues, and then you're hearing some performance issues. And this is from Digital Trends. So they say Black Myth Wukong's frantic combat and emphasis on fluid movement make it feel unlike any of its other contemporaries. That's interesting. Okay, frantic combat, fluid movement. Okay, I'm interested. Games Radar give it an 80. They say with strong combat and a fascinating world that mostly rewards exploration, Black Myth Wukong is a fun action RPG that feels like the modern God of War games viewed through the lens of Chinese mythology. Now, this is an 80. Interesting comparing it to another. They're comparing it to God of War and the enjoyment and fun of that game, and then you see the 80, and I'm wondering if okay, so I'm pull up the review here, Games Radar, but I was wondering that is a very high compliment to compare it to God of War, but again I see the 80 or an 8 out of 10, but they gave it an 80, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're paying it that compliment. You're saying that it flows like the modern God of War games. And actually, let me kind of flesh that quote out a bit here. They say they're saying Black Myth Wukong is not Souls-like. It's a third-person action RPG based on the classic Chinese novel Journey to the West, which I mentioned earlier. It isn't particularly hard. Although one of the reviews I think we read mentioned some difficulty or frustration maybe with bosses. It flows like the modern God of War games, which is I think a pretty high compliment, praise. Not just because of all the gods around, but also the mix of color-coded gear, character skill trees, and linear paths with half-open sections attached. It is the first and foremost an adventure, more inviting than punishing, but it does take a page from the Book of Souls-likes by hiding a ton of content from you, including some of the best moments and most challenging encounters. Okay, it's interesting. You could have a blast through Black Myth Wukong as a 20-hour boss rush, but you could also spend over 40 hours hunting down every boss, collectible, and NPC. Very Souls-like in that regard. There's often some bosses that are hidden in Souls games. For example, Melania, not somebody I would have gone off the beaten path for in Elden Ring, but there's some other bosses too in some other Souls games that you got to go off the beaten path to find that are optional bosses. Demon of Hatred, I believe, in Sekiro is another one. If you don't necessarily go back to that open section area, and I think do some things to trigger that encounter, is another one. Another example of kind of going off the beaten path to find some of these bosses. But what's interesting here is with Games Radar, and again, I'm thinking about the 8 out of 10, saying that it feels like modern God of War games, which is which I think is a pretty big compliment for a new game. But they're saying that the cons of this game are combat can get repetitive, annoying level design, minor stuttering on PC. So now we're hearing PC performance issues and minor stuttering twice. Be interested to see what kind of rigs these reviews were done on. And Steve actually has the Black Myth Wukong. Excuse me. You could actually do the run the test to see what performance you can get on your PC rig through Steam.com with Black Myth Wukong. So, but it looks like Games Radar spent about 34 hours in this game. They say that Wukong can be incredibly frustrating on occasion, but it's an overall rock solid action RPG. It does with dozens of fantastic bosses and absorbing refreshingly weird world. I can't even talk today. All right, let me grab the super chat. Mr. Nichols with the $2 super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Says Wukong on PS5 is very low res and not reviewed. What I guess do we know the resolution? I may have missed that, but do we know what the resolution is going to be for Wukong on PS5? Hey, what's going on, Innate? So Innate is going to be playing this game probably on a 4090 GPU. Do you have a 4090, Innate? I forget. Brian East is saying... Yeah, Brian East, I don't know how big Game Science is as a studio, but this is their first effort, this first big release for them. Mariano says, speak in Spanish or English no good today, BRAP? Oh, I won't be speaking in Spanish, sir. Here, Knights of the Realm. Look, man. I'm gonna tell you again. If you're going to come in here, look, and I don't know, maybe it's a mental health issue, and I'm not, trying to poke fun at you. I'm being serious here, Knights of the Realm. If it's a mental health issue or a self-esteem issue where you just don't know how to behave or function in here as a mature adult, I'm serious. Like, go see someone, get some help. Because you'll probably see quality of life improvements in your own life. And I'm being sincere about this. I mean, this is actually getting to the point now where you're coming in here and it's almost like stalker behavior. And it's actually a bit disconcerting because you have been warned, you've been muted, and we've talked about this show and the kind of conversations we have here. And if you can't do it, if you can't have some kind of self-control, you're going to get banned. And I've been very, I've been very. And Nate, by the way, how long did you mute him for? I muted him for 24 hours on Wednesday, and he decided to come back. And look, again, I'm not trying to make light of mental health issues, poke fun of that. I just feel like this behavior he's exhibiting is teetering on some kind of mental health or self-esteem or something. Something's going. Something with him is just not all there. You might need to mute him longer if he comes back. And Nate, if he comes back, you might need to mute him for 24 hours again if he comes back and he starts typing nonsense. Or Nate, if we can permaban him, then that might be something we should do as well. Thank you, Nate. Appreciate it. So Nate, let me ask you, Nate, are you picking up Black Myth Wukong? Again, Dawn, I'm not. I'm sensitive to what you just said. I'm not. I hope you don't think I'm poking fun at mental health issues. I'm not. I just feel like when people come in and act like that, they just get help, do something. And I sincerely mean that. All right, Nate says I pre-ordered Split the Cost. Is Priscilla playing? Is she interested in this kind of game, or I forget? Is Priscilla? She plays Souls games, I think, right? I don't remember. All right, let me go back to some of the other reviews here. So that was Games Radar. Noisy Pixel also gave it an 8. They said Black Myth Wukong delivers a visually stunning, action-packed adventure deeply rooted in Chinese. I really can't talk today. I feel like I'm just rambling. I'm gonna have to go out for some cervezas here in a little bit. Actually, I was supposed to meet my buddy to watch Manchester play, and he can't get out of work right now, so it's one of the reasons why I'm ranting. Noisy Pixel says Black Myth Wukong delivers a visually stunning, action-packed adventure deeply rooted in Chinese mythology. While the combat system is engaging and the world is expansive, the game is hindered by disjointed narrative and repetitive environments. Interesting. I have to go back and look at some of the other reviews. This is the first time that I'm seeing in our review roundup of Black Myth Wukong that the narrative was a bit disjointed. Interesting. Let's see here. Players looking for a challenging action experience will find much to enjoy, but the lack of a cohesive story and navigation tools may detract from the overall enjoyment. It's interesting. We've heard one review say that, hey, it's not really that challenging. One review said it can be frustrating. In this review, saying if you're looking for a challenge, for a challenging action experience, you'll find much joy. And this is the first that we're hearing a lack of cohesive story, negative tools may detract from the overall enjoyment. So I'll say this about reviews. There are certain elements of reviews that I feel are subjective. It's how someone connects with a story, a character, protagonist. It is, I think the things that are objective in reviews are things like performance issues, right? Like screen tearing, frame rate stutter, game crashes, bugs, those are those are tangible things, right? But they are, I think it's important to mention the subjective pieces. Some people may find a game difficult, others may not find a game difficult. Yeah, I think that's fair too, James. I think, if you don't play Souls games, you're reviewing Souls games, your perspective on a Souls game may be different from someone who plays Souls games and reviews those games. So, all right. All right, let's see here. So let's go to IGN. IGN often gets flack for their reviews, which is funny. I find it funny. All right, IGN says, despite some frustrating technical issues. So this is, again, we're seeing, this is probably the one reoccurring thing I've seen as we go through our review roundup of Black Myth Wukong issues, performance issues. We heard about, we've read that three other times now. So 2 or 3 other times. So this is the third or fourth time that we're seeing technical issues. So, So IGN is saying, despite some frustrating technical issues, Black Myth Wukong is a great action game with fantastic combat, exciting bosses, tantalizing secrets, and a beautiful world. I'll say this, like if I predicted Black Kong would probably land at 80, high 70s. What's really exciting within the last 4 months or so, we've actually, people always complain about the same old franchises being rehashed. Where are the new games, the new titles? And we've seen Shift Up release Stellar Blade, which had good reviews, and that was their first like AAA type game. And now we're seeing Game Science with Black Myth Wukong, which is a new release, just completely new game that's released this year. Those are 2 titles that are new entries into the gaming space, the AAA gaming space, new franchises. I think that's actually really exciting. I think that's something that should be celebrated, as we often complain about the lack of new content titles. We're tired of seeing Assassin's Creed 25, but I think this is really this year. I mean, despite some people saying this is kind of a down year, I don't disagree with that. I think it's these 2 titles in particular, I think, are great entries into the gaming space. I mean, completely new titles from small studios, Game Science and Stellar Blade, or not Stellar Blade, Shift Up, excuse me. So I think that's really this is really awesome. Big shout out to Longhouse Gaming Podcast, as this year has had fantastic indie games. Yeah, this has been actually a really good year for indie games too. Like I don't understand how people are. Yeah, I don't disagree. Longhouse Gaming Podcast. That's one of the things that Game Logic makes fun of me for is that I don't play a lot of indie games. And then people in live chat refer to me as AAA BRAP. Look, I love my AAA games, but to your point, Longhouse Gaming. Yeah, I mean there have been some incredible indies this year, and people should really be paying attention to those games. As much as we complain about there not being, and this is kind of the this is kind of the thing that kind of frustrates me when I read some of the narrative on social media, is that people often complain that games aren't taking a chance, if you will. Why are they taking creative chances in gameplay and visual presentation and audio and all these other things? And it's like you find these in indies quite a bit. Some of the, from what and people that I've talked to, some of the games that I typically see, I know Disco Asylum isn't necessarily new, but Hades 2, Disco Asylum, Balatro, Pow World, Sea of Stars, Pacific Drive, Valheim. There was another game that Logic is playing, and I forget the name. It just released on Game Pass as well. Oh crap! Dredge was another game I think Logic was playing. It's an indie horror game. I can't remember the game that Logic's playing now. What the hell is it called? I'm trying to think. What the heck? Now this is gonna drive me crazy. What the heck is Logic playing right now? That's really good. Something Hindenburg. The something of somebody will tell me in the live chat. Yeah, Atlas Unicorn. Yeah, Unicorn Overlord's not indie technically, but a smaller game, but still a great small game. This game's driving me. Dungeons of Hindenburg. That's the game that Logic's playing right now, and he's actually enjoying it. And that game is actually 9 out of 10 on Steam right now. Let me look what it is on Metacritic. It's an 80 on Metacritic right now. Dungeons of Hinterberg is, and that's on PC. 81 on Xbox. So again, I think to Longhouse Gaming's podcast's point, like there's some really, really great indie games right now, and if you are someone who is, and by the way, Vanillaware is just. I don't think people talk enough about Vanillaware. The game before the game that they released before Unicorn Overlord, Aegis 13 Sentinel, was actually really good too. But yeah, again, with the conversation around a lack of creativity in games, I mean, there's creativity out there. You have to find it, and a lot of it's you're going to see, I think, in indie games. Zow's another one that came out this year. But let me get back to our review roundup here of Black Myth Wukong. So that was IGN. I'm going to do a bit more of a deep dive into IGN's review here. So IGN, the review was by Mitchell Saltzman, and the review came out today at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mitchell starts the review out by saying, "I've never been so utterly blown away, yet simultaneously so unbelievably frustrated by a game as I have been with Black Myth Wukong. This is undoubtedly one of the most ambitious and impressive action games I've played. It's stunningly gorgeous. Its combat is fantastic. It's incredibly challenging." That's interesting because, again, we've heard other reviews that have said that it's not really challenging, but always satisfying to overcome, and the setting is refreshingly unique and steeped in rich Chinese culture. Just to sing a few of its praises, despite all of that, it often feels like it's barely holding it all together. I suffered numerous crashes on PC. All right, so this is... Oh, okay. So earlier in the show, I asked the question. I wonder what GPU or hardware, PC hardware, some of the reviewers were playing Black Myth Wukong on. So, and it's going to be interesting to see if there's a launch day patch as well. But he said, Mitchell says, "I suffered numerous crashes on PC." We heard about the stuttering on PC. I think, and someone used the general term performance issues. So Mitchell's saying he suffered numerous crashes on PC. He also says the PlayStation 5 version wasn't made available for this review, despite having, he says, and then he says this, so in regards to the crash, he says, this despite having a top-of-the-line setup with a GeForce RTX 4090. Not to mention that multiple times I fell to the ground and died just as I was on the verge of defeating a particular tough boss, or the way characters would randomly switch from English to Chinese, or the way the dialogue audio would drop out altogether and leave me completely in the dark during an important cutscene. So it's going to be interesting to see if they have a patch, a post-release patch or release day patch for Black Myth Wukong. But it's interesting that he's having crashes with the 4090. Well, I shouldn't say. I mean, I'm not so. I mean, it's PC. I don't think 4090s aren't necessarily immune to crashes per se. But I think his point is that he was having some issues with the 4090. But again, I mean, I think just having a 4090 doesn't necessarily negate crashes. Let's see here. I'm going to go down to... All right, he says, and even though I'm a big fan of Souls-likes, ditching those mechanics feels like the right move for the game that Wukong is trying to be. It's far more forgiving, focused on keying you in action rather than poring over menus or retracting your steps to regain your lost currency after dying, and Wukong is better, more distinct game for it. To be clear, though, when I say it's more forgiving, I don't mean that it's less difficult than a From-style game. In fact, I go so far to say that it's between the that between this and Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, I had more difficulty getting through Wukong's toughest challenges. Wow, that's interesting. He's saying it's more. He had more difficulty in certain aspects of Wukong than he did in Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. And there's no difficulty options, but at the same time, those challenges never felt unfair. And overcoming some of the tougher boss fights was always a satisfying combination of learning their attack patterns, figuring out where I could maximize and punishment windows, and tweaking my loadout in ways that made the best use of my chosen powers. Regarding combat, he says there's an excellent blend of different combat options. He says they are spirit skills, which are earned by defeating certain more powerful versions of enemies and absorbing their essence into your gourd. They're effectively transformations. These are effectively transformations that only last for one attack and are also tied to a fairly lengthy cooldown. But it's great to be able to, for example, use the Wandering Wight's powerful headbutt attack to get an extra stagger after mobilizing an enemy. These spirit skills can also be leveled up, which makes it so that even early games that I can't even talk. Which makes it so that even early game spirits never lose their strength as the campaign rolls on. So let's see here. I'm going to go in regards to the visual. This is Wukong is one of the most gorgeous games I ever played. I'm sure that 4090 helps that as well, or having that 4090. He says, on top of that, there are several secret boss fights to discover. No, I don't want to read that. I read that earlier. We talked about the secret boss fights. All right, so his overall verdict is game size's debut action game, Black Myth Wukong, is mostly a great success, despite some major technical black marks and localization issues that are likely to cause some frustrations at launch. Combat is fantastic thanks to a great balance of careful resource management and lightning-fast twitch reaction gameplay that tested my skills as much as Elden Ring ever has. Now, he's talking about some major technical black marks, localization issues. If this is something, and I'm going to read some of the... I'm going to keep an eye on some of the reviews as they start coming out today and over the weekend. But if this is an issue, localization, some of these performance issues, Nate says it sucks to review games on PC without drivers. And that's what I was wondering, Nate, if we're going to see some kind of driver update with Black Myth Wukong, some kind of release update or patch. But that's something I want, me personally, I want to keep an eye on, because if those issues are there post-launch, this may be a game that I hold off for the time being. We do have Star Wars Outlaws, which is coming out to the end of the month in about 2 weeks. The game's got me interested as well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see again how the reviews come in this weekend. If this is something that is going to be a reoccurring something that we see as a reoccurring criticism of the game. And it's going to be interesting to see what the Steam users have to say about this. I always do look at the Steam user reviews. It's going to be interesting what the Steam I can't even talk. What the Steam user reviewers are going to say here in 3 days. Oh, so he says Black Myth Wukong is he says, let me read the whole thing, the verdict here. All right, so despite some major technical black marks and localization issues that are likely to cause some frustrations at launch, combat is fantastic thanks to a great balance of careful resource management and lightning-fast twitch reaction gameplay that tested my skills as much as Elden Ring ever has. Despite being a more traditional action game from despite being a more traditional action game than From Software style. Not only that, but there are a ton of exciting boss battles, a great variety of enemies, and the world they inhabit is an absolute treat for the eyes and ears. Its story has its moments, but relies a bit too much on having prior knowledge of the events of Journey to the West. I may have to read it to Journey to the West, and it really could have used a map to make it rewarding exploration. I'm sorry, he says, and it really could have had used a map to make its rewarding exploration measure up to the strength of its combat. That said, its strengths more than carry it through. So that's actually good to hear, because sometimes we talk about video games reviews, and if they are, this is the one thing I think gamers often get caught up in is they'll say, oh, well, IGN reviewed this game and gave it a 9, but it had the same bugs of another game, and they gave that game a 7. They're biased. And it's like, no, I mean, these things exist on a spectrum. If what more than likely happened with the game that they gave a 7 that had the same bugs as the game they gave a 9 is that the game that they gave a 7 to, the rest of the game didn't do well enough to not make those bugs an issue. I hope that makes sense. So, and he says it here. He's like, that said, its strengths more than carry it through. So he's saying its strengths outweigh some of the shortcomings, right? And I think this is what people don't often think about. Like, it's that this. a game is a sum of all its parts, and if the positive aspects of the game outweigh the negatives, that's why you might get that game that gets a 9 that has the same bugs as a game that got a 7, because a game that got a 7, the negatives outweigh the positives. So he says strengths more than carry it through, making Black Myth Wukong a great action game that could be even greater if game science can squash the bugs. So it's going to be interesting if we get some kind of patch and what that patch does to the game. So Jason says number scores are so dumb. Reviewers should either recommend a game, recommend the caveats, or not recommend. A thumbs up, thumbs down, sideways. Look, I don't have an issue with number scores. I think the issue with number scores is that I think people weaponize it, and then people don't do their due diligence and read the actual meat of the review. And that is, I always tell people, read the review, but people don't. And I also think the review sites, people often look at scores, and the problem is, Jason, people won't read. That's the problem, and they'll just go to another site that will give them review scores. So I think that's part of perhaps that's the challenge too. Like if you're trying to drive traffic to your site, you review the review scores, and they're just going to go somewhere else. Yeah, August is going to be a busy month for games. Then September's busy too. October. We have Madden coming out. I think Madden comes out this week, if not mistaken. Madden 25. Yeah, it definitely is a conundrum for sure. It really is. All right, let's see here. Gaming Age also gave it an 80. They said Black Myth Wukong pretty much delivers on what it always promised: a gorgeous world where you get to battle crazy monsters and demons. It would be nice if there was a little more to do between the craziest monsters and demons, but if you want a game that will test you while giving you some nice scenery to look at, you'll find it here. All right, let's look at GameSpot. They also gave it an 80. GameSpot says Black Myth Wukong is an uneven game where the highlights often outnumber the lowlights. So very similar to what IGN said. Its triumphant boss battles and fast-paced combat make up for the stale moments in between. That is what wasn't Gaming Age. Was it Gaming Age? Yes, that's what Gaming Edge mentioned as well. There could have been more to do in between the triumphant boss battles. So its triumphant boss battles and fast-paced combat make up for the stale moments in between, where bland level design and scarcity of enemies will have you clamoring for the next face-off with a deadly Yogui. I don't pronounce that. I appreciate that it's not just another Souls-like in what is now a crowded genre. And that's actually good to hear. And the choice to go for a boss gauntlet is unexpected and honestly quite refreshing. It's disappointing that it falters outside of its cinematic clashes against mighty beasts, but designing this many rousing boss battles while avoiding a sense of fatigue is no mean feat and deserves praise. So that is GameStop's review of Black Myth Wukong. PC Mag says they gave Black Myth Wukong an 80. Black Myth Wukong draws from the iconic Some Wukong mythos to deliver an action RPG packed with satisfying action and dizzying magical variety set in a delightful world. Let's see if PC Mag. There we go. PC Mag. Here we go. So PC Mag also listed. I'll list the pros that PC Mag listed here. Gabriel Zamora with the review of Black Myth Wukong. PC Mag says pros: simple but highly satisfying melee combat. Robust magic systems offer great action variety. Weird and wonderful setting. The cons: frustrating mana and cooldown systems, and minor performance issues and bugs. So we're hearing the performance issues and bugs again. Trying to see what if he says He actually compares the size, the scope and size of the maps to many of the maps of Dark Souls 3 in this review. I'm trying to see if PC Mag listed or mentioned the hardware they were using for this game. And I don't see it here in the review. I don't think they mentioned it. IGN mentioned the 4090. Oh, they actually here in the review, PC Mag says, can your PC run Black Myth Wukong? As an Unreal Engine 5 game, Black Myth Wukong makes heavy use of AI upscaling via either DLSS, FSR, or TSR to squeeze the best performance possible out of your gaming rig. Our test PC, outfitted with an AMD Ryzen 5 3600 processor, an NVIDIA RTX 2080 GPU? Huh. And 16 gigabytes of RAM seem to handle the game quite well at first. Oh, they said at first. We enjoy the game at 1440p with over 70 FPS and only occasional hitching and drops the occasional hitching and drops into 50 FPS. However, I suspect there may be a memory leak issue, as playing for an extended amount of time would tank performance no matter what settings I adjusted. Oh, that's bad. Even at the lowest graphical values available, the problem would correct itself after a restart. Oh, man. And Nate, what say you, Nate, about memory leaks? If you're still in the chat, Nate. Yeah, I'm thinking if there's memory leaks, I may hold off. I may hold off. I have a 3070, 32 gigs of memory. I have an i7 1200 7K processor. I'm really curious now to see how this game's going to perform on PS5. Yeah, Nate says memory leaks suck. Even if you have a ton of memory, it still causes crashes. I have 64 gigs of RAM myself. So Nate, do you think that's what was caused? You think the memory leaks were causing the crashes for the reviewer for IGN who was running it on a 4090? Hold on just a second, everyone. Hold on just a sec. I got to go do something real quick. All right, sorry about that, everyone. I had a UPS delivery I had to sign off for. I subscribed to a wine club, and my wine was delivered this afternoon, so I have to sign for that. So I saw him come up on my Ring app. All right. And it says it could be the memory leaks, among other issues with them playing without the proper drivers. That alone can cause a whole host of issues. Yeah. So, Nate, you being somebody who primarily plays on PC like me, and this to everyone in the live chat that primarily plays on PC, are you going to? Priscilla says a wine club. Really? Yes. I get wine club. I have a subscription to a wine club. I actually have a winery that's I don't know, probably like 7 minutes from my house, and so I either have the option of going to pick up the wine at the winery there, which I don't do because I usually end up hanging out there if I do that. So they will ship it UPS, and then you have to sign for it, or else they'll take it back. So So that's why I had to step away. Priscilla says I know nothing about wine. Wine is good. Wine is good. So, but for my PC brother out there in the live chat and those listening later on, please, if you listen to the show later on, let me know what you think of the live chat. Based on some of the reviews that I've read about performance issues, crashes, some bugs, memory leaks. PC Mag suspecting a memory leak with this game. If you were planning on purchasing this game on PC, if now you might wait, assuming there isn't maybe a day one patch at launch, but if there isn't, do some of the reviews that we're reading sway you to maybe wait on picking up this game until they iron out some of these issues, or is FOMO going to kick in and you're just going to buy the game anyway? Just let me know what you guys think of the live chat. And please, those listening to the replay of the show, let me know in the comments section as well what you think, if you're going to wait or still buy the game day one. Jason Ames says, I'm not paying full price for the first game of an untested dev. I was going to wait regardless. Okay, that's fair. Rob says, I have a 4090 13900K CPU, 32 gigs of can't even talk. 32 gigs of RAM, 6,000 megahertz with an NVMe. I will play on release. We'll see then. Yeah, Rob, I don't know if you heard the IGN reviewer had, we don't know what CPU you had and how many gigs of RAM he had, but he did mention he had a 4090 and had experienced crashes. All right, so PC Max is, aside from technical issues, they are a handful of bugs worth mentioning. Sometimes text will appear in Chinese rather than English. We heard that in the GameSpot review, I believe it was, or GameSpot. For example, when crafting a permanent stat boosting item, I lacked the necessary ingredients and was giving a warning in Chinese. Oh man, that's gotta be, that would be fuss. That would actually bother me. There were a few instances where spoken dialogue switched to Chinese. That would bother me too, because I want to know what they're saying. And audio did cut out in rare instances. We heard that in the GameSpot review as well. We hope these kinks are cleared up before launch or soon thereafter. Also, Black Myth Wukong, according to PC Mag's, not yet Steam Deck verified or playable. We'll update when information becomes available. Yeah, I think I'm going to keep an eye out on what happens on launch day this coming Monday. PC Games verdict: a fantasy worth exploring. So even, I mean, I think that's one of the common I think themes we're seeing here too with the reviews that we've been reading, is that despite some of these technical issues, the positives of the game outweigh the negatives. Now that being said, I'm still going to wait. I don't want to deal with technical issues if I don't have to. But yeah, so PC Mag. Their verdict is a fantasy worth exploring. Tackling a reimagining of Journey to the West is a daunting task, but developer Game Science has delivered a great game framed around this iconic novel. Black Myth Wukong honors the mysticism and fantasy of the story, while also delivering a tightly bundled action RPG package featuring cleverly designed systems and mechanics. It's fun to play. The world is a joy to explore. Look past the restrictive cooldown system and the odd performance hiccups, and Black Myth Wukong is a great game that is well worth checking out. So I think this is why, my assumption here is this is why we're seeing this game score, in that 8 out of 10 range, because of some of the technical issues here. All right, so and then I'll go to some of the Windows Central gave it a 70. They said ultimately Black Myth Wukong is a very solid. Let's see here. Black Myth Wukong is an action RPG with one hell of a boss rush, but what's between those battles holds it back from true greatness. Windows Central saying pros, thrilling cinematic boss fights, great combat, diverse build options, beautiful presentation, enjoyable well story told, strong overall performance. Cons, bland, uninspired level designs, enemy variety is lacking, a few noteworthy performance issues. So they gave it a 70. RPG site gave it Tech Radar Gaming gave it a 70. They said if you can look beyond some janky fights and want to experience a unique setting, there's some fun to be had in Black Myth Wukong. Game Rank gave it a 60. They said Black Myth Wukong is a game that shies away from the Souls-like label, yet is clearly gunning for the Souls-like audience. It's far more the best. It is far from the best in the genre, but it's also not the worst game that has followed in Dark Souls' footsteps. If you go into expecting a mostly standard Souls-like experience with some blood-boiling boss encounters mixed in with basic level design, you will have a better time than if you're going into expecting it to be like a traditional character action game. Black Myth Wukong offers about 30 hours of gameplay for its first playthrough, with a ton of side content to check out as well. But many will tire of the limited combat options long before they reach its dazzling yet equally aggravating final boss fight. So 60 was the lowest score that was given. 60 was the lowest score that was given to Black Myth Wukong. So it's currently sitting. Let me see if there's any more reviews that have come in since we started doing our review roundup here. Please do me a favor, hit that like button if you haven't done so already. If you're new, consider subscribing, hitting the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. Also, remember, we do have a membership tier. Consider becoming a BRAP VIP member, and you will be... What is they say I'm playing day one, but expected to be rough without a solid patch. Yeah, that could be the case, Nate. Consider being a BRAP VIP member. Support the channel. We appreciate the support. But BRAP VIP, by becoming a BRAP VIP member, you have the opportunity to win a free giveaway once a month. You'll be thrown into that lottery to win a free giveaway. We're going to do our first giveaway next Wednesday, actually. So for those BRAP VIP members, keep an eye out. We will announce the winner on Wednesday night show. We'll be doing a random drawing, and you will have the opportunity to win something gaming related. So, Dana Tone says, I think the PS5 version is going to be a mess. I hope not. I hope not for those playing on it. Maybe. But maybe not. I mean, the optimization could be better on PlayStation 5 too. I mean, that's the thing. We don't know. I mean, and I wouldn't jump to that conclusion either, that the PC version is going to be a mess. I mean, I believe Jedi Survivor, Dana Tone, actually plays better on consoles than it does on PC, if I'm not mistaken. And Nate, could you confirm that? I feel like since the patches that Jedi Survivor actually plays better on consoles right now than PC. So it's not always a one-to-one. Sometimes those things do happen, but I wouldn't say it's 100% that this game may not do well because of what we're seeing on PC. Again, I'm not saying that it's not going to have issues. What I'm saying is that maybe it might not have issues. Maybe it might be better optimized or not have those issues. Or maybe it will, but we'll just have to wait and see. Yeah, so Nate's saying Jedi Survivor, heard some PC people still having issues, but PS5 is pretty much flawless now. Yeah, Nate, I've been having some with Jedi Survivor. I went back and started playing it again. I've been having like some stuttering issues. while it's reversing, which is kind of interesting. It comes and goes. Jason M says Jedi Survivor doesn't play better on consoles, but it runs fine in general now. No, I think the Innate, from what Innate's saying and what I heard too, Jason, is that the PS5 version, the console versions actually are a bit more stable than the PC versions of Jedi Survivor. I mean, now you're arguing semantics, James. Not by much. It doesn't matter if it's not by much, but the point is that it runs better. All right, so that's our review roundup for Black Myth Wukong. I'm going to hold off. Yeah, Nate, and actually, yeah, James too. At Nate's point, we were referring to stability with Jedi Survivor. All right, I do want to move on to the rumor that's going out here that another major Xbox exclusive could be going to PlayStation 5. That is Forza Horizon 5. And so this was something that Shinobi had mentioned. He didn't specifically mention Forza Horizon 5. He said a big Xbox exclusive will be coming to PlayStation 5 next month. Amazon UK had leaked or had shown Forza Horizon 5 for the PlayStation 5 releasing September 27th. And some other insiders are pointing to people that I've spoken to have said that their understanding is that Forza Horizon 5 will be coming to PlayStation 5. Again, this has not been officially announced by Microsoft, so I just want to throw that there. But I will say, I said early in the show, just a show correction, I said that Shinobi had mentioned Forza Horizon 5. He didn't, again, specifically mention that. So I misquoted. He just mentioned a big Xbox game, as I just said a few seconds ago. But I did want to make that correction because I said that earlier in the show, and that wasn't exactly what he said. Some other folks I've talked to have indicated that we could see Starfield and towards the latter part of the year on PS5 as well. Again, these are rumors. Now, I will say this. Forza Horizon 5 is kind of interesting because they have GT7 on as an exclusive. And I know those are two different games, but still, I think it's kind of interesting that Sony's like, yeah, we'll have Forza Horizon 5 on here, if that in fact happens. Captain Place says, I do not see a place on PlayStation for Forza at all. I mean, I think Forza Horizon 5, I could definitely see that. It's a very popular game. I mean, I could certainly see that happening. I mean, it's definitely an arcade. Yeah, James Thomas says Horizon more arcade, which has more mass appeal than simulation, and perhaps could cause issues with GT. I mean, maybe. I think GT though pulls a different crowd though. What's that simulation crowd? I maybe, and I'm not going to say that it's going to have zero impact. I'm sure that maybe Horizon may. Excuse me. Forza Horizon 5 may actually pull maybe some people, but again, I think those are two different audiences as well. Those who enjoy simulation races versus those that prefer more of that arcade type racing experience. But because there are other arcade racers on PlayStation 5 already. Are those games pulling a lot of people off of GT7? Probably not, but yeah, I mean, again, I'm not going to say that some people won't leave, but I just don't think it's going to do. I've heard some people kind of say that it's going to damage GT7 and make and that Polyphony should be worried. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that because they appeal to two different types of gamers. Those games appeal to two different types of gamers. One being Excuse me. One being, sorry, one being sim genre, sim racing genre, then one being the arcade racing genre. Excuse me. And he says, I play Forza Horizon 5, GT7, they're worried. Yeah, exactly. That's my point. Yeah. But, you know, it's kind of interesting. Like, I've been noticing some of the... I've been listening to some of the pundits that are more Xbox focused, the content creators, the influencers are more Xbox focused, and some of the more hardcore Xbox fans on social media. And I struggle to understand the reaction that or the surprise that this could be happening when we've seen this. I mean, you could see this happening. We talked about this on Wednesday. B Money has talked about this a lot on the show, where once they started putting games on PC, their consoles started selling less. They were having issues selling software. And then when it got out that they were going to put some games on PlayStation 5, the 4 titles, right? It was really actually 5. And not just PlayStation 5, but also Nintendo Switch. And that they were going to, that this was going to be the start of them putting more first-party titles onto rival gaming console platforms. And people were like, no, Phil said don't get used to this. But he also said the same thing when they released games day and date on PC, in particular Quantum Break, that wasn't going to be the norm per se, and then that changed. So it's interesting that people are still surprised or pushing back on this idea that Microsoft's strategy now really is, as a software as a service company, to bring their software to where the consumers are. That is their core business strategy. That is the strategy of the Xbox platform now. I don't think people should be in denial. But it's also interesting hearing some of the pundits who were speaking out against this or were saying that this is the best course of action, this is the future. And then when you hear them now, when you hear Forza Horizon 5, because I think Forza Horizon 5 hits a bit harder because it's a tentpole, where Sea of Thieves isn't necessarily a tentpole franchise for Xbox. Neither is Pentiment or Hi-Fi Rush. But this is a tentpole franchise. This is huge. And so it's interesting hearing the pundits. I heard one particular pundit, influencer who we've talked about on this show, who unfortunately has some very bad gaming takes. He's a very nice person in real life. I've had the pleasure of speaking to him on numerous occasions, but some bad gaming takes. And often, unfortunately, unfortunately his channel tends to spread a lot of misinformation, disinformation out there. But the point being is I was listening to him talk about, seemingly befuddled that this is happening and saying, he doesn't like it, could understand how people would get angry. But this is what his channel has been championing. This idea of games everywhere is better for everyone. And seemingly he's like, I don't like this. This is, I'm an old school console guy. That's kind of the sentiment that I've listened to, I've read from other Xbox fans, pundits, influencers, who have been talking about how good the strategy is and how great games everywhere are benefit consumers, and somehow that putting games everywhere is the elixir to the industry's problems that we're seeing right now with layoffs, which it isn't. That is not the elixir to the issue, by the way. There was another influencer who said that more games everywhere will help save jobs. I mean, there's no data that corroborates that. I mean, look, you have successful third-party developers who have had layoffs. I mean, like, that's not the solution. You've had third-party games that release on multiple platforms that aren't successful. I think it's only 5% of all games are actually, I forget what the statistic is. We talked about on this show. But 5% of all games are actually financially successful for publishers. So this idea that putting third-party games everywhere is the great elixir to solve all the industry's problems. I mean that's not exactly the truth. This is where I talk about the conversation around video games need to be more nuanced. Incorporating data. Just throwing that out there seems like almost like a PR statement for a particular platform more than anything else. Because again, we have scenarios where you have games that are exclusive to platforms that are very successful. We have games that are on all devices that are not successful. So more games everywhere isn't necessarily the solution. I think the issue the industry has is that we have too many games. The industry is overly saturated with content. And there's only a finite group of people that will play video games. And we know that putting games on mobile devices isn't necessarily the great elixir to growing the console space either, or to growing AAA console games as well, because we seen what happened when Resident Evil 7, and there's a couple other games. We talked about this about a month and a half ago on BRAP. There were some sales numbers that came out for Resident Evil 7 on the Apple iPhone 15 Max or Apple iPhone 15, and so it was Resident Evil 7, one of the Assassin's Creed games, and some of these games were like free for a few hours, like had like a free 10-hour window. Some of them were like $15, and they sold terribly on the iPhone. These are AAA console games on a mobile device. They sold terribly. It was bad. I mean, we need to understand something here, that the mobile consumer is a vastly different consumer than the console consumer. This idea that there's a million console gamers that are just waiting for console games to come to a mobile platform to play is unfounded. Because if you want, and we know this about consumer behavior, consumers want a product. They have an appetite. They go out and buy the product. They're typically not waiting. We also know that when we look at the Resident Evil 7, the Assassin's Creed releases on the Apple iPhone, and those game sales were abysmal. Despite having a cheap entry point, despite being, I forget which one of them was free, like for like 10 hours or something. I have to go back and pull the article. They're just different consumers. So it's just interesting to me to hear some pundits, Xbox influencers who seem a bit more, I don't know, maybe upset about the idea of this big tentpole franchise for Xbox going to PlayStation 5. And they're not happy with it. But it's like, but you said that this strategy was the best strategy, and now you're not happy with it? It doesn't make sense. There's only, look, I mean, we don't, they are mature consumer products, or say they're mature industries within consumer products. It's just weird to me that people double down and say console gaming's dying. We don't say that about the luxury goods market, which is a mature market. We don't say that about the mobile phone market, which is a mature market. We don't say those things. So I think some of this stuff has been blown out of proportion and has been something that's been used as a way to as propaganda for one particular company to show why that company's strategy is the best strategy moving forward. And I saw it again. I saw it again this week where there was an influencer who said, the future of gaming is going to be revolved around a handheld with a docking station at your TV because of the success of the Nintendo Switch and the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck, while it's found some success, again, if people wanted a mobile device they could play it. They have the option of picking up a Steam Deck to play their games, and some do. But I'm not so sure that we know whether or not the future of gaming looks like the Nintendo Switch. Like I would never make a definitive statement like that. What we know about the success of the Nintendo Switch is this. Nintendo cannibalized its handheld business, which was very successful for them, more so successful than their home console business. They combined both together because they could move their customers to that platform. I don't necessarily know if that's the case. And I'm thinking if it's a handheld with a docking station, and you also got to look at the performance of the types of games that run on the Nintendo Switch. How expensive is the hardware going to be for a device that's both mobile and has a docking station that can provide home console-like experiences? And I don't know if the technology is there yet at a price that is commensurate with what console gamers want. Just food for thought. A different perspective, if you will. And Nate says exactly the cost would be astronomical. And that's my point. Like, then you think about cooling and and the docking station. I mean, like, yes, there is a slight bump on performance if you dock the Nintendo Switch, but those games also aren't visually demanding. And what we know, we just talked about Wukong, Black Myth Wukong, and it running on Unreal Engine 5. We know that Unreal Engine 5 has been taxing, and has had issues with even some of the beefier PC specs. Has caused issues for some of the beefier PC specs. I'm sorry. We know that every console generation, that as games become more demanding of hardware, we know that. I'm sorry. Let me back. We know that often AAA games that have beefier graphics are demanding of that with the introduction of newer hardware, we get games that are more demanding because they're taking advantage of that new technology and their new hardware. Right. So to Nate's point, it's going to be interesting. Like if people want that experience, and what's the cost of that going to look like? I think someone used the example of GTA 6. Well, they're going to do GTA 6 on, you can play it on your handheld. Well, I mean, like we have other big, and I'm not necessarily sure GTA 6 is going to be the driver of this adoption of a hybrid-like handheld similar to the Switch, because we have games that have very high, some of those popular games like Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft. You can play those games mobile right now. You can play Fortnite on Nintendo Switch. I don't think people are going out in droves to buy Nintendo Switch and play Fortnite. And some do. So I'm just not sure if there's a consumer base out there in the console space that wants to convert to a handheld device that has a docking station. And that presents to me, that presents the issue of smaller form factor. You're demanding the same performance out of something that's smaller, than a traditional console. And what are the costs associated with that? Because the smaller you go, the smaller chips, you're going to need more. You're going to need better efficient cooling. You need the same, power output in a smaller form factor, and the chips that could do those things cost more money. All right, what's going on? Okay, so what's going on in the live chat? So you're saying more PlayStation fans bought and played MLB than Xbox fans? Yeah, so James, here's the thing. So James says, Mary Wilcox, so you're saying more PlayStation fans bought and played MLB than Xbox fans, because if that's the case, it wouldn't have needed to go to Xbox. It's not that it needed to go to Xbox. It's that Major League Baseball threatened to pull the license from Sony. So Major League Baseball sells very well on the Sony PlayStation. So it was either Sony loses the license, you know, and it's, you know, and they didn't want to do that. So it's not entirely accurate that that it needed to be on Xbox because it wasn't successful. Major League Baseball, the show, was actually successful for PlayStation. And the easiest way to understand that is the fact that Sony was releasing MLB The Show on an annual basis. They're not going to... Remember, I mean, we talk about like... And this is the other thing, too. When we talk about games releasing everywhere. And this is why this conversation is more nuanced. Logic and I were having this conversation. Developers love money. And when people say, oh, you know what, this developer is leaving money on the table but not releasing on Xbox, you know, or on the Nintendo or on multiple devices. So what you're saying is that companies who love to make money are somehow leaving money on the table. And it's a little bit more nuanced than that. We talk about, is the juice worth the squeeze? And sometimes releasing a game on one particular platform may be more advantageous to a developer because that platform, the consumer that lives and breathes on that platform, may be the consumer base that's going to buy that type of game that developer is releasing at a higher level than on another platform. And you got to remember, like when you're developing for multiple platforms, that's more what? Time, money, resources. And sometimes it's just more advantageous for them to do that. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes they realize, you know what, we can go multi-plat because we understand that the buying habits of the consumers on these platforms are going to buy our game regardless. All right, I got some super chats I need to get to here real quick. All right. Street Shadow with the $10 super chat says, I literally had a friend of mine say there are no games out and the industry is moving back, but he also has never played Ghost of Tsushima, Stellar Blade, Ratchet and Clank, Miles Morales, Hi-Fi. Wow. That's okay. That's certainly a perspective. By the way, thank you for the subscription, High Night. Appreciate it. All right, Street Shadow with a $10 super chat again says MLB The Show is the only platform exclusive sports game. MLB saw those Madden number dollars wanted that. There was a time where Sony had 3 exclusive licensed sports games: MLB, NBA, and NFL Game Day. Hey, Nate, is there a way the permaban this Knights of the Realm guy? He just came back in. So I don't know, Nate, if that's possible. Or Mary, is there any way to permaban that Knights of the Realm guy? He just keeps coming back. Yeah, if we could figure out how to permaban him, that you got him. Is he so Mary? Is he permaban now? You can't come back to the channel. Sorry, everyone. Just waiting to get confirmation on whether or not this guy was permabanned. Oh, he's hidden from the channel. Okay, so he's done. So he's off in the ether. No one's going to see him. That's great, by the way. Street Shadow's like, hey, everybody, Knight is back. That's funny. Yeah, I mean, that's just weird behavior. It's very unfortunate. I don't know if there's something going on. I hope that individual gets help. It's just very unfortunate to behave that way over video games. So, yeah, and I again, we talk about these tentpole franchises coming back to PlayStation or potentially coming to PlayStation 5 with Forza Horizon 5, and I don't think I wouldn't be surprised to see Halo at some point. I mean, Halo makes sense. I mean, we talk about live service games with that multiplayer component. I mean, those games are going to thrive off of being on multiple platforms to get pulled in more gamers. That's where those multi-plat releases make sense for those types of games. So I wouldn't be surprised. Again, I'm not saying it's going to 100% happen. I'm just saying it wouldn't surprise me to see Halo eventually come to PlayStation 5 as well, which would be mind-blowing to me because I specifically bought the original Xbox for PlayStation. So, but all right, so look, BRAP needs to wrap up this rant. I do want to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. Thank you to the mods, by the way, for being great as always. I really appreciate it. Ice Queen Gaming, Mary Wilcox, and Nate. And everyone, please have a great weekend playing video games, or just have a great weekend in general. And if you're playing video games, have fun doing so, because ultimately, again, that's what it's all about. It's all about having fun. And no matter what platform you're on, but do me a favor, please hit that like button if you haven't done so already. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification so you are alerted when we go live. And also we do have the BRAP VIP membership. Consider subscribing or being a BRAP VIP member, I should say. By signing up to be a BRAP VIP member, you do get a free. You get entered into a chance to win a free giveaway once a month. So thank you, everyone, again, for stopping by. Sorry I was late, but thank you again, and we will catch you next time. I may do another BRAP rant this weekend. So give me a follow at BRAP _ podcast on Twitter, or now known as X. And I always post programming updates. Let everyone know when I go live there. If you subscribe, hit the bell notification. YouTube should alert you when there's upcoming shows. So thank you again, everyone, for watching the show. We will catch you next time.